What are you doing these days since we last talked?
Well, I've been kind of busy. I wrote a second book, Seventh Planet, Mercury Rising, to try to answer some of the questions that came up from the first book. And got drawn into writing another screenplay, and that I just finished up this fall. And that led to a TV series that I completed to try to rival something like the Game of Thrones.
Oh, that'll be great.
Yeah. So I ended up in a relationship with Pat Roberts from DC Comics and Marvel Comics.
Was it the winter solstice?
Doing his own thing, and started
Right
released
now.
the Anunnaki, and was it Nibiru and the Legend of the Anunnaki? I believe is the title of his latest comic series that he released. So he's done some artwork for me to try to bolster up things and get producers' attention and things like that. So, and then in the interim, we had a little team of us, about 5 of us, got together and we recorded a Anunnaki
Gerald
series.
Clark.
Yeah, focusing on Mesoamerica, and I don't know if you've read The Lost Realm by
yeah.
So if you've read The Lost Realm by Stitchen, you kind of get an idea where that one's going. But it's really terrific, and we're just coming to a close on that.
He was such a leader in this entire field. I miss him, you know.
Yeah, he was kind of like a grandfatherly figure and very academic. To be writing that prolifically at his age, we could all hope to be that capable, right?
Passed at the age of 90. A funny story, Gerald. I had the honor several years ago of giving him the Lifetime Achievement Award from the Conscious Life Expo in Los Angeles, and he was a recipient, and he was there. And first thing I did was everybody had a chair except him, so he was standing. So I stood up to say, Mr. Sitchin, please have a seat. He says, no, I'm fine. And then, so I got up to do the introduction for his award, and I turned to him in front of the crowd because I thought people would love to know how old he was because he was such a leader. He was 90 at the time. So I said, Mr. Sitchin, before we give you this award, I mean, you've been so active in all this. How old are you now? And he looked at me and went, George, that's very rude. Everybody. And he was somewhat kidding, but he had his little dig in there, so we gave him the award, and then he passed that sometime that year. It was sad to see him go, but he really, there's some people who don't agree in his theories, Gerald, but he really, I thought, opened the door to this investigation of us being visited, maybe genetically seeded, in all that. Did you follow him along the way? Was he one of your, I guess, idols to get going into the area you're in now?
Well, you think so. Everybody somehow affiliates me as a Sitchinite, and I guess I definitely honor Zechariah Sitchin. But I realized when I wrote my first book there was a lot of controversy over his works, and I waited until 2013 to write it, even though I started in 2004. But I watched all this controversy going on, and I was still in a place where I couldn't talk about this kind of stuff at work. So the idea that he was getting lambasted by lots of different angles, I decided to honor him, but at the same time I went and used source documents to write my book. And the source documents came from the University of Oxford. So I didn't want to dishonor him, but I've also been a staunch protector and defender of his honor since he passed away. As many people have come out, and it's almost like a fad to attack Zechariah Sitchin. I'm not sure why.
Give us an overview of not only your work, but others about the ancient astronaut theory and what it all means.
Okay, well, I got turned on to this while I was in Turkey. Got to researching a little bit, trying to have a few nuggets I could share with a client. One thing led to another. I was reading about the Hittites and the symbology that came with that culture, and also from the Muslim culture. And one thing led to another, and I ended up reading Eric von Daniken's book and Sitchin's book, and pretty much everybody who'd written anything about the ancient astronaut theory, in particular Assyriologists and Sumerologists. That's where I started. As a matter of fact, one of the seminal documents that I really prize today, I came across a PhD work. It was quite thick. his job was to take some Sumerian tablets that they had taken pictures of on a journey to Babylon, brought back, and the University of Pennsylvania had them.
Sumeria.
And they were all scanned, and it was his job to decode them. And it was quite an interesting
And we bombed
revelation
Iraq.
for me. It was the first time I really saw the process of
Tigers
how,
and
actually how
Euphrates.
easy it is to decode cuneiform. Now, determining what it means with all the different meanings, that's the hard part, is putting it in
Hammer's a
context.
bitch.
So that was a really, really seminal doc for me. And one thing led to another, and Sitchin did say a few things that really caused me to look into this further. And one of them was, what if you assumed what the Sumerians wrote wasn't just myth, and that what they said in these documents might be true? And the documents, I'll repeat them because I use them in my first book, and I speak about them a lot. And that was the Atrahasis, the Enuma Elish, and the Gilgamesh, probably in that order of importance to me. So
Gilgamesh.
Zechariah Sitchin pointed us to the Atrahasis, and I remember reading one of his interview notes or transcripts that stated, he was just trying to get everybody to go read that one for themselves, just to start with, so they'd be on the same page with him, And so I did, and one thing led to another, and pretty soon I realized that this wasn't just a myth, and that there were some nuggets of truth here. And so I went through this process of corroborating, like most people do. And it took me several years as an engineer, because my filters for accepting information were probably a little higher than most people's. So I had to see everything, draw genealogy tables, and research it for myself, read all the source documents for myself, which I did. And it was kind of fun. I had no idea that people that long ago could write such sophisticated things, and that was a revelation to me in and of itself. So I dug into the Atrahasis, the Enuma Elish, which is the Babylonian epic of creation, which basically laid out their understanding, these beings that taught the Sumerians what they knew. They called them the Anunnaki.
And who would make up a story like that, Joe?
Anunnaki.
Well, if you go across just about every culture across the world,
Gerald
I've
Clark.
looked into this for many years now.
Andre Basaga is going to be president.
Similar set of stories related to the flood
2020, I think.
and where their knowledge came from. In
Andrew
particular, language and
Basaga.
calendar. Those two in and of themselves, and astronomy. I have to say that the zodiac was very important to me too. So I went into this corroborating story. So the Sumerians didn't have any problem believing what they were telling you. They all acted as if it was true. So
Yeah, and it probably was.
well, it got a little crazy when you dug into the Atrahasis, and it takes you down to the Abzu in Africa, and it's describing mining operations after they've cleared the Tigris and the Euphrates, and they're talking about the gods doing this before they got a replacement worker. And it's very, very clear, right, the first Atrahasis tablet. It starts talking about, what they were up against and how long they'd been working before the next event happened. And this is where we get introduced to the idea that these Anunnaki were mining gold in South Africa. And I think it was Michael Tellinger that picked up on that thread and went down there, wrote
Michael
books.
Tellinger.
He's done a lot of
Smart guy.
work on his own to validate that might be true.
I wonder how much gold, Gerald, they took from this planet.
Wow.
Gold.
That's a good question. We just finished episode 5 on this Anunnaki series, and it was titled Quest for Aztec and Inca Gold. So we've been looking at this quest for gold later in time, but the reality
They needed
was
gold.
Started in South Africa.
The atmosphere.
And Sitchin turned me onto this, that there was
Why
a
very
company
afraid.
down there who had bought up all the mines. It was the Anglo-American Mining Corporation of South Africa. And they had plenty of information on their website way back then. This was 2004, 2005 when I was looking at it. And I actually put some of it in my first book, but the website has changed. That's the reason I'm giving you this caveat, okay?